You want more money, more opportunities, more freedom in life, but are you truly ready to handle those things? Because life doesn't pay you for your desires, it pays you for your preparation. Wealth is not a gift for dreamers. It is a result reserved for those who are capable of receiving it. You cannot summon abundance if your inner world is still in chaos, if your habits are still weak, if your thinking is still governed by fear, doubt, and limitation. You cannot hold on to anything if your mind isn't strong enough to retain it, sharp enough to recognize opportunity, or disciplined enough to turn it into real outcomes. No one places a heavy object on unstable ground. And money, opportunity, luck, they don't flow toward foundations that are not solid. You want more, so start by building something strong enough on the inside to contain what you're asking for on the outside. Because if you don't have discipline, you'll spend money before you ever create value. If you don't have vision, you'll get lost in endless options and ruin any opportunity that comes your way. If you don't have inner strength, you'll panic and walk away at the very moment you're called to take responsibility for the results you want. The truth is, you will only keep what you've become worthy of. Let's face reality. So many people have had great opportunities in their hands, only to lose them. So many people have touched money, only to return to zero. Not because they lacked chances, but because they lacked the capacity to hold on to what those chances brought. It's like someone who's never trained stepping into the ring. The pressure will crush them. That's why you have to start from within. No one sees your training. No one sees how you shape yourself when you have nothing. But those very things are what build your future. You can't reap fruit if you haven't sown the seed. And you can't sow seed into dry, barren soil and expect growth. Your mind is the soil. Every thought, every belief, every emotional reflex, it forms the environment where abundance must take root. If your mind is cluttered, full of weeds, doubt, insecurity, and disorder, even if $1 million opportunity is placed right in front of you, you won't see it, you won't grasp it, or worse, you'll destroy yourself. Don't blame life for being unfair. Ask yourself this instead. Are you living like someone who's truly capable of receiving what you want? Wealth is not a destination. It is the universe's response to your preparation. It is the result of a structured mind, of systematic habits, of a steadiness that doesn't waver under pressure. If you haven't gotten what you want yet, don't assume it's too far away. Maybe you simply haven't yet become the person it's searching for. Money doesn't get lost. Opportunities don't show up at random. There's logic beneath it all. And if you're not seeing results, maybe it's because you're not broadcasting the right signal. The universe doesn't reward based on wishes. It responds precisely to who you've become. Instead of asking, why don't I have it yet? Ask, who have I become to deserve it? Because you don't want to track what you want. You track what you're prepared for. When you change your internal structure, change the way you think, the way you respond, the way you work when no one is watching, then the things you thought were out of reach will start to appear naturally. Not because you got lucky, but because you've aligned with them. When your mind is strong enough, clear enough, grounded enough, you won't need to chase opportunity anymore. Opportunity will come to you. That's the difference between a hunter and a magnet. One burns energy to pursue, the other radiates energy that draws everything closer. And that energy doesn't come from loudness. It comes from precision, from depth, from the abilities you've built through quiet, relentless days of practice. Stop wasting time asking why you haven't received what you want. Look at your mind, the place where every result is either born or silently destroyed. You cannot attract what you are not ready to receive. And you cannot be ready without deliberately training yourself. Wealth is not something you wait for. It is something you prepare for. And when you reach that level, you no longer need to demand it. It will come on its own, not because it's forced to, but because you've become someone it cannot ignore. The more you crave, the more you chase, the more you emit the signal that you are lacking. And whatever you emit, the world will reflect right back at you. When you live with the mindset of a hunter, you assume that the prey is running away, and anything that is running away from you is by definition something that doesn't want to belong to you. That's the first mistake most people make, which keeps them forever outside the zone of wealth. They keep running after short-term opportunities, jumping from one strategy to another, looking for tricks, formulas, secrets, hoping to catch the life-changing moment. But the truth is, wealth doesn't come because you chase it. It comes because you become someone indispensable in the ecosystem of value and trust. This is the paradox most people don't recognize. The more you focus on how to get money, the more you turn money into something outside of yourself. But if you shift your state from seeker to attractor, money begins to move by a completely different logic. It's no longer something to hunt. It becomes the natural consequence of the value you radiate. No magnet can attract iron unless it has a magnetic field. So instead of asking, how can I get more money? You should be asking, have I become the kind of person valuable enough for money to find its way to me on its own? When you truly become a magnet, money cannot ignore you. It is drawn toward you, not because you're pulling, but because you're undeniable, powerful, and impossible to overlook. That's not a trick, and it's not magic. It's a simple law of energy and alignment. You don't need to search for it anymore. You need to become someone who is irreplaceable when it appears. Everything you're chasing outside is revealing a void inside. When you run after wealth, you're admitting that you don't yet have it, in that sense of lack. No matter how you cover it with positive affirmations, flashy cars, luxury watches, or six-figure goals, still speaks for itself. Energy doesn't lie. You may appear confident, but if deep down you fear being left behind, being inferior, being judged, then what you attract won't be abundance, but a cycle of poverty dressed up in temporary hope. Wealth comes to those who don't need it to feel complete. It comes to those who have found fullness from within. And when you operate from that place of enough, you become someone the world wants to work with, trust, and invest in. You don't need to force your worth. You are the worth. You don't need to prove you're deserving. Your presence says it all. You don't seek light. You are the source of light. If you're constantly trapped in the fear that this opportunity can't be missed because it won't come again, then you're still living in a mindset of scarcity. People with inner power don't think like that. They know opportunities are endless because they're the ones who create them. They don't look for jobs, they are pursued. They don't beg to be chosen. They create value so compelling that others have no choice but to choose them. That is the true essence of wealth at the root. They don't chase money, they make money chase them. And don't misunderstand, this doesn't mean you sit still and wait for things to come. It means you go all in on becoming the highest frequency version of yourself. You study more, you train with greater discipline, you cut ties with relationships that drag you down, you stay firm with your principles, you become so disciplined that others can't even understand why you do what you do. But it's exactly that which creates the irresistible effect. While others play short-term games, you play the long game. While others seek attention, you build competence. At a certain point, everything you once chased will start chasing you. You don't need to scream to prove your worth. Real value is never loud. It doesn't need advertising. It echoes quietly but powerfully like a mountain that stands still. It doesn't need to move, yet everyone must look up to it. That's the position you must build. Not the position of someone waiting to win the lottery, but the position of someone who has become impossible to replace. Want to attract wealth? Then stop running, stop rushing, stop trying to prove something, start from within, work quietly, build a solid foundation, develop your identity to the point that others have no choice but to adjust the way they treat you. And one day you'll no longer need to knock on any doors because the doors will open before you without you needing to knock. Everything you are living today is the result of the blueprints you've drawn in your mind yesterday. Not destiny, not society, and certainly not other people, but the thoughts you've allowed to exist in your mind. That's why I say your mind is not just a tool, it is a factory. And that factory is operating every second, every minute, producing only one kind of product, your future. The real question is, what kind of raw materials are you feeding into that factory? If you let your mind be filled with thoughts like, I can't, I'm not good enough, I wasn't born for this, then you're putting into your production line flawed, patchy, and illogical blueprints. And don't be surprised if your life runs like a malfunctioning system, out of sync, full of errors, delays, or constant dead ends. On the other hand, if you know how to control every thought that passes through your mind, every word that escapes your lips, every image you allow your mind to retain, you'll witness something strange begin to happen. Reality starts to change, not in a storm, but with precision. Because every thought is a command, every belief is a line of code, every word you speak is an instruction your brain receives and acts upon. The mind doesn't differentiate between joke and truth, it just executes. If you keep saying, I can't, I'm not capable, that's impossible, then your mind will begin to shut down your inner creative system. It will stop seeking solutions. It will filter out potential opportunities. It will switch off your growth mode. And you'll live inside a cage you locked from the inside. Then blame life for being unfair. The greatest danger is not thinking one negative thought. It's thinking negatively long enough for it to become your default. And once it becomes default, you won't even recognize it anymore. You'll think it's objective thinking or just how I am or realism. But the truth is, it's only the result of unconscious training you've imposed on yourself. There's no such thing as absolute reality, only scripts you've repeated so often that they become your operating system. If you want to change your outer results, you can't just manipulate your behavior. You have to rewrite the source code. And where is that code? It's inside your head. You have to do what 99% of people never do. Observe your own thoughts. Examine every question you ask yourself. Change every answer you default to. Analyze every sentence you keep repeating, because all of those are not just language. They're architecture blueprints, the infrastructure of your life. And if your foundation is flawed, you can't build a stable building. You can only paint the surface, and sooner or later, it will collapse. The mind is not a storage box for information. It is the operating system that governs every behavior, every emotion, every decision you make. If you run on a faulty system, you'll choose the wrong people, the wrong opportunities, the wrong timing, and then keep blaming your circumstances. But if you recalibrate your internal operating system, you won't need to force determination so much. Everything will start to flow in the right direction naturally, because you become a system that's properly configured. Don't underestimate your thoughts. One bad thought can ruin a chain of achievements. One false belief can stop you from stepping out of your comfort zone. One unconscious sentence can reprogram your entire future. On the flip side, one right thought at the right moment can open a door you've never seen before. One powerful belief can help you rise when everything seems lost. One right sentence can forever change how you see your life. And the most incredible part is you have the power to control this factory. You don't need to be better than anyone else. You just need to start mastering your own mind. It's not easy, but it's the only way. Learn to filter your thoughts. Start by questioning every belief you're holding. Does this still serve me? Who planted this thought in my head? If I no longer believe this, who could I become? Every time you ask a question like that, you're redesigning a part of the factory that produces your future. And over time, the products coming out of that factory, your decisions, your actions, your results, your opportunities will start to change accurately, sustainably, without the need for miracles. The future is not something you move toward. The future is something you are creating every single day using the raw materials you feed into your mind. If you want a different life, start by thinking differently. This factory never stops working. The only question is, what are you letting it produce? Money doesn't come because you work hard. It doesn't come because you try harder than others. Money comes for one reason only. You create value that others need so much they're willing to pay for it. If you don't have money, don't look at your wallet. Look at the value you are or are not creating for the world. It's a harsh but accurate reality. No one pays you for simply existing. They pay you for what you bring that makes their life better, easier, more efficient, safer, or more meaningful. 24 hours a day is fair for everyone, but not everyone gets paid the same, not because of injustice, but because not everyone delivers value at the same level. One person earns $10, 0 cents an hour. Another earns $10,000, 0 cents an hour. Not because the latter lives on another planet, but because they've developed skills, mindset, and identity to the point that the value they offer is so rare, the market can't ignore it. When you become rare, money stops being a problem. It becomes a byproduct. This value is not something you're born with. It's something you forge. It's not a gift from genetics, not a privilege from background. It's the outcome of every book you read, every hour you practice, every time you choose growth over compromise. Want to increase your income? Don't look for a new job just yet. First, find a way to make yourself more valuable. You can't control the market, the economy, or what others think. but you can control how much you invest in yourself. And that's what changes the game. Ask yourself one simple but incredibly difficult question. What problem are you solving and for whom? If you don't know the answer, don't wonder why the money hasn't arrived. Every financial transaction begins with a problem. People with problems will always seek people with solutions. And those who have solutions are the ones who make money. Want to increase your value? Learn to solve bigger problems for tougher clients with higher standards. Don't stop at knowing how to do something. Level up until you're irreplaceable. There's a truth very few people are brave enough to admit. If you're easy to replace, you'll always be underpaid. If you only do common tasks anyone can learn in a few hours, you can't expect exceptional rewards. But if you're the only one who can deliver a solution in a complex situation, you become the default choice. At that point, your value is no longer measured by time, but by the impact you create. And the great news is, you don't need anyone's permission to start increasing your value. No new diploma required, no certificate, just enough hunger to study deeper, observe more sharply, train more consistently, and walk into the hard spaces most people avoid. Value doesn't lie in how much you know. It lies in how well you turn that knowledge into real-world problem-solving ability. A book doesn't change you, but turning what you learn into action, into results, into tangible benefits for others, that's what changes everything. The world doesn't lack smart people. It lacks people so skilled they can't be ignored. Want to be that person? Start by going deeper instead of hopping jobs. Pick a skill and master it to the point the world has to pay for your help. Whatever the field, finance, tech, education, art, there is always room for someone truly valuable. No need to shout, no need to prove. Just show up with quality that exceeds expectation, and the market will find you, not the other way around. Lastly, don't confuse value with busyness. Doing a lot doesn't mean you're moving forward. If the work you're doing doesn't produce real results for someone, if your skills don't help others live better, if your words don't change someone's behavior or emotions, then you're operating like a machine that produces nothing of real value. And systems like that always get eliminated eventually. Money is the shallowest measure of value, but it's the first one the world reflects back to you. You don't need to chase it. Just focus on becoming the person who cannot be replaced. And once you do that, you won't need to set your price. The world will raise your value for you. If I placed $1 million in your hands right now, what would happen? For most people, that money would disappear faster than they imagine, not because they're foolish, but because they don't yet have a mind capable of carrying the weight of $1 million. You can't hold on to something that exceeds your inner capacity. It's like pouring water into a cracked glass. No matter how much you pour, it will leak out. And with money, this law is even harsher. It doesn't just slip away. It drains you if you don't have a solid mental foundation. Look at lottery winners around the world. They once held millions of dollars in their hands, but just a few years later, most returned to bankruptcy, sometimes in a worse state than before. Why? Because they received wealth without the corresponding identity. They stepped into a world filled with speed, expectations, responsibilities, temptations, and pressure far beyond anything they had faced. And that world crushed them, not because money is toxic, but because their mindset was too fragile to survive in this new climate. To keep $1 million, you need the mindset, habits, systems, and ethical standards of someone who operates at that frequency every day. You need to think like someone who knows how to protect assets, manage risks, resist temptation, and say no to purchases made only to prove success. $1 million mind doesn't spend money to show off. It uses money as a tool, not a social mask. $1 million mind doesn't need applause, it needs growth. It doesn't crave admiration from the crowd, it needs an optimized system. It doesn't seek wealth as a savior, it sees wealth as the outcome of consistently making the right decisions from a foundation of logic and emotional stability. $1 million mind can delay gratification. It understands that short-term satisfaction is the enemy of long-term freedom. It's willing to wait, willing to reinvest, willing to learn things others find boring, because it knows that real wealth is what you still have when everything else falls apart. $1 million mind doesn't work for money. It builds systems that generate money. It doesn't get tied up in every small transaction. It designs processes that continue to operate even in its absence. And most importantly, it doesn't break its principles under emotional pressure. It understands that one careless thought can burn down an entire empire. If you haven't touched $1 million yet, it may not be because you're not smart or hardworking. It may be because inside you're still operating like someone living at a lower level. And when you get a chance to step into a higher one, you unconsciously self-destruct. One impulsive decision, one pointless debt, one promise you didn't keep, one image you tried to maintain on social media. All of it drains your energy little by little, every single day. And just like that, you end up back at the starting line. So if you want $1 million, don't ask, how do I earn it? Ask, am I strong enough to keep it? Stop building $1 million mind, even if you only have $1,000. Learn to manage the little as if it's the foundation for something greater. Learn to say no to things you don't need, even if you can afford them. Learn to think big, live simply, and act from logic, not emotion. Read the books wealthy people read. Follow those with depth. Learn from those who've walked past you haven't even seen yet. And when you do that long enough, you'll realize it's not money that changes you. It's the identity you build before the money comes that determines how long you get to keep it. Money doesn't make someone rich. It simply arrives for those who have long become rich in mindset, habit, and ability. And if you start today without needing anyone to prove it, see it, or approve of it, then one day you won't have to chase $1 million anymore, because you will have become the kind of person $1 million cannot ignore. You can't build a solid building if every brick is laid on impulse, and you can't build wealth if every day you live is driven by emotions and instinct. The rich are not luckier than you. They simply act with more precision day after day, and those actions aren't grand events. They're small things, repeated so consistently that they become the default operating system in their minds. That's what you call habits. Every big result begins with small actions carried out relentlessly. And the irony is, most people don't realize that what they're silently doing every day, waking up late, spending impulsively, avoiding responsibility, procrastinating, consuming toxic content, lacking discipline, is gradually programming them for stagnation, not prosperity. They think wealth comes from some dramatic turning point, a lucky investment, a big project win, a fortunate relationship, but they don't see that wealth doesn't come from events, it comes from systems. You want to know if someone can become wealthy? Don't look at their bank account. Look at their morning routine. Look at how they spend money when no one is watching. Watch how they respond to pressure, how they plan, how they talk to themselves in their own mind. Wealth doesn't hide in the car they drive. It hides in how they treat every hour, every spending decision, every small choice that others overlook. And that's where the difference lies, in the details most people aren't conscious enough to notice. Habits aren't just actions, they are declarations of identity. If you wake up each day and spend your first hour scrolling through your phone, you're not just wasting time, you're signaling, I don't have control over myself. And if you can't control a single morning, how will you control an entire life? On the other hand, if you build a series of correct habits, no matter how small, you're accumulating energy, focus, and clarity. These things don't give you immediate results, but over time, they create something money can't buy, inner strength. Poor people often wait for motivation. Rich people build systems that allow them to act regardless of emotion. They don't ask, do I feel like it today? They ask, what needs to get done today, no matter how I feel? They don't live by emotional weather, they live by principle. And that principle gets embedded into life through habits. No motivation is strong enough to save you if your daily system is loose, chaotic, and disorganized. Financial freedom isn't created by a breakthrough, it's sustained by consistency. You don't need to do something great every day. You just need to do the right thing consistently without giving up. Write 1 page in your journal, read 10 pages of a book, track your spending, plan tomorrow, keep a promise to yourself. Each small action is a brick. And if you keep laying those bricks long enough, you won't need to try to become wealthy. You will become wealthy because your internal structure has changed. You no longer react out of habit. You actively shape reality. And wealth is no longer a goal. It becomes a natural outcome. Habits are also the universe's most silent but ruthless test. It watches you every day, not to reward you, but to measure if you're ready. If you constantly indulge procrastination, spend emotionally, abandon difficult tasks, or do things just to get them over with instead of doing them well, then don't wonder why money, opportunity, and quality relationships avoid you. You're not being punished. You're simply being read as the wrong frequency. If you want to change your financial frequency, change your behavioral frequency. Build a chain of habits that's invisible but irreplaceable. Dare to stay consistent when no one is cheering. Dare to do the right thing when no one is watching. Dare to be strict with yourself when the majority are comfortably making excuses. That's how you break free from the poverty loop. That's how you clear the path for money to find you without you chasing after it. Wealth doesn't begin with money. It begins with the habits you choose to keep when no one is forcing you to keep them. And if you build the right habits, you won't need to go looking for the life-changing opportunity. You will become the opportunity life has been looking for. Every morning you wake up, you face only two choices. Either you design the life you want, or you let the world decide it for you. There is no neutral ground. You are either the architect of your life or a passive reactor to everything that happens. And wealth, whether in money, time, energy, or freedom, only comes to one of those two types of people: the ones who proactively design each day with clear intent. Reacting is the default mode of the majority. They wake up because the alarm rings, check their phone out of habit, read the news out of fear of missing out, reply to messages because they're pressured, go to work because they need the paycheck, follow to-do lists made by others, eat based on emotion, spend based on impulse, and end the day with the same old question: what did I even do today? They're not living, they're reacting. And you can't become wealthy if you live like a nervous system constantly triggered by the outside world without any internal blueprint. Truly wealthy people don't let their days unfold by chance. They program their minds before the world gets a chance to interfere. They actively build systems that help them maintain focus, allocate time by priority, and eliminate everything that doesn't serve their goals. They don't wait for motivation to act, they act to create motivation. They don't ask, what do I have to do today? They ask, which task will bring me closer to my destination? And this sense of initiative is the dividing line between those who produce results and those who chase the results of others. Designing your life doesn't mean controlling everything. It means controlling the most important thing, your response to everything. When you have a clear vision, you're not easily pulled into urgent but meaningless tasks. When you know what truly matters, you're not faking busyness with petty activities that make you feel occupied but lead you nowhere. And when you dare to say no to distractions, only then do you create the space to focus on what delivers real value. Reactive people are always exhausted, not because they do too much, but because they do in the wrong direction. They burn time, energy, and effort putting out small fires instead of building a fireproof system from the beginning. They get involved in everything, take on every role, try to please everyone, and then wonder why they're drained yet going nowhere. Meanwhile, proactive people live with calculated choices. They don't need to do more, they just need to do what's right. And that right comes from knowing what they're building, why it matters, and being willing to sacrifice what's trivial to protect what's essential. If you look at the schedule of the wealthy, you won't find chaotic busyness. You'll see the precise repetition of purposeful behaviors, reading books, meeting the right people, building the right skills, spending quiet time thinking, scheduling workouts as seriously as investor meetings. They design every hour, every minute with intention because they know every unconscious hour is one step backward from freedom. And freedom doesn't come from the balance in your bank account. It comes from how much of your time you live aligned with your chosen goals. Reaction is a sign of someone who's not ready. Proactivity is the mark of someone who cannot be shaken. When you react, you're always waiting for the world to give you the test before you start learning the answers. But when you're proactive, you write your own exam. And when you're the one setting the rules, you hold the greatest advantage in any game. That's why successful people aren't swayed by trends, news, or random events. They don't panic when markets crash. They don't falter when criticized. They were prepared long before because they design, they don't react. Wealth doesn't come from knowing more. It comes from acting consistently within a purposeful design. And if you're not seeing results yet, take a look at the system you're living each day. Maybe you don't need more information. Maybe you just need to remove excess reaction and replace it with strategic proactivity. Don't live like someone trying to keep up with the world. Live like someone who's building their own world. one action at a time, one decision at a time, one morning at a time. And if you do that long enough, you won't just enter into wealth, you'll become the one who defines it. Money doesn't make you someone else, it simply magnifies who you already are. If you're kind, money will allow you to express that kindness on a larger scale. If you're selfish, money will expand every damaging consequence you cause. If you lack emotional control, money will make you impulsive to the point of self-destruction. And if you've never truly understood yourself, money will push you into places that unravel you faster than any failure ever could. Money doesn't heal you, it exposes you. Many people dream of having more money because they believe it will fix the insecurity inside them, the feeling of not being enough, not having a voice, not feeling confident. They treat money as medicine for internal wounds, but the truth is money is just a magnifying glass. It multiplies everything already within you. If what's inside you is chaos, money will accelerate that chaos. If what's inside you is stability, money will expand your ability to stay in control. And that's why you must build character before building your bank account. If not, your assets will soon crush you. A person who's not grounded but has money is like someone who can't swim thrown into the ocean. It's not the water that drowns them, it's the illusion that they can handle the new environment. Money doesn't bring people down on its own. It's the unresolved emptiness inside that causes people to lose themselves. Someone who's never learned discipline will spend money as a tool to prove things no one asked for. Someone who's never learned to listen will use money to impose the wrong kind of power. Someone who's never understood the real meaning of freedom will buy everything and still feel empty. Wealth, when not paired with wisdom and depth, is a double-edged sword. It makes the weak more exposed, the fake more transparent, and the unaware walk into situations with no way out. You cannot use money to hide the cracks within. The more you try to cover them up, the wider they become. Fame, luxury, travel, branded goods, none of it can fill the feeling that you're not enough. Only deep foundational work on how you think, how you respond, and how you face yourself each day can do that. And when you become clear enough to see that money is just a tool, you stop letting it control your mind. You no longer use it to polish your ego. You no longer live to prove that you're successful in other people's eyes. You understand true value needs no noise. You invest in knowledge, in real life experiences, in relationships built on trust, not on mutual benefit. And money, instead of leading you off course, becomes fuel for a life worth living. The sad truth is, too many people were never taught how to live with money. They learn how to earn it, but not how to keep it, use it, or understand it. They do everything to get it, then spend it as if it will heal wounds they'd never dared to face. They spend their whole life climbing out of the fear of not having enough, only to find that once they have everything they wished for, they feel lonelier, emptier, and can't understand why they still don't feel fulfilled. Because enough is not a financial state. It's a mental one. When you are clear, peaceful, and self-aware on the inside, money becomes a collaborator, not a master. It serves you. It expands the impact you want to create. It strengthens every right decision you fought to uphold. But if your inner world is still a mess, not enough, not ready, then money will betray you in the exact way you betray yourself every day. If you truly want to step into lasting wealth, don't start with financial goals. Start by rebuilding your character. Learn to keep promises to yourself. Learn to take responsibility for your emotions. Learn to face failure without blaming. Learn to say no to what's tempting but wrong for you. Learn to hold firm to your values, even when no one is watching. These things aren't flashy, but they are the pillars that uphold any kind of wealth that hopes to endure. True wealth isn't in the amount of money you make, it's in the person you become when you have power over that money. And if you become someone grounded enough, sharp enough, and refined enough, then any wealth you build will be a natural reflection of that inner strength, not a mask you have to force yourself to wear. Because in the end, money saves no one, but it will amplify everything you already are. No one rises in an environment that drags them down every day. You can't live surrounded by people who complain, who are negative, who settle for mediocrity, and still expect yourself to thrive. Because humans are copying creatures. You're not only influenced by what people say, you're programmed by how they think, how they react, how they live. And if you don't proactively redesign the circle around you, that very circle will silently but thoroughly redesign you. Let's be honest, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. It's not a motivational slogan, it's a law of energy. If you spend most of your time with people who lack direction, are immersed in drama, fear change, and doubt every big dream, then sooner or later, you'll shrink yourself to match their idea of stability. They won't tell you directly to stop, but they'll scoff when you dream big. They'll raise questions when you take bold action. They'll make you feel guilty for wanting something different. And slowly, you'll stop stepping outside your comfort zone, not because you lack ability, but because you no longer have the spirit to go against the current of those closest to you. On the other hand, when you surround yourself with people who set higher standards, think further, and act with greater urgency, you're forced to level up, not because they demand it, but because their presence is a silent reminder that you can be more. Every conversation with them is a mirror. You can't complain in front of someone taking action. You can't make excuses in front of someone getting results. You can't stay still when everyone around you is moving forward step by step with discipline. The right circle isn't where you always feel comfortable. It's where you can't avoid the better version of yourself. In that space, you're not coddled, but you're always lifted. No one pampers you, but everyone challenges you. No one needs you to be perfect, but everyone expects you to grow. That's the kind of environment that transforms you, because you're not just inspired, you're recalibrated daily by real energy, not just words or theory. Don't evaluate your circle by the length of your friendship or shared memories. Evaluate it by how you feel after each interaction. Do you leave the conversation with a clear mind, new ideas, stronger determination, or with fatigue, doubt, and a hollow feeling? A real friend isn't someone who keeps you comfortable. They're someone who makes it impossible for you not to move forward, even when it's uncomfortable, because they see potential in you that you've forgotten, and they won't need to waste it. Don't hesitate to create distance from relationships that were once close but are no longer aligned. You're not betraying anyone by moving forward. You only betray yourself by staying in places that no longer nurture you. Someone who truly cares about you will be happy to see you grow, even if it means they're no longer as present in your life. Growth means accepting that not everyone is meant to go the whole distance with you, but those who do walk with you must be the ones who push you closer to your destination, not just those who make you feel comfortable along the way. Choose people who make you feel like you're not enough, not to make you feel inferior, but to push you to keep growing. Choose people who make you think differently, act differently with more boldness and courage. Choose people whose vision is so expansive that you have to stretch your own thinking just to keep up with the conversation. Choose people who are honest with you about your weaknesses, but still believe in the strengths you haven't tapped into yet. And if you don't yet have people like that around you, you'll find them. Read their books, listen to their talks, observe how they live, learn to think like them, then live as the best version of yourself. And gradually, you'll filter out the people who truly deserve to be closest to you. Wealth is never a solo journey. No matter how talented you are, if you're constantly surrounded by people who drag you down, your spirit will eventually be worn down to the point you forget why you started. But if you dare to create a circle that lifts you up, you won't just live differently, you'll live right, because when you change your environment, you change your habits. When you change your habits, you change your results. And when your results change, you begin to step into a life you once only dared to imagine. No one climbs to the top while being pulled down every day. Choose the right people to walk with, and you'll choose the right peak to reach. If you truly want to know why you don't yet have the life you desire, don't open your banking app, stand in front of a mirror, not to check your hair, adjust your clothes, or search for flaws, but to look directly at the one responsible for everything that's happening, good or bad, abundant or lacking, progress or stagnation. It doesn't come from your salary, your job, the market, or luck. Everything begins with a person staring back at you from the other side of that mirror. Not the version you try to display on social media, the real version, unfiltered, unapologetic, unmasked. That version is both the root cause and the starting point of every result. You can read as many books as you want, take as many courses as you like, set as many goals as you can. But if the person in the mirror doesn't change, nothing will. Life doesn't respond to what you wish for. It responds to the internal identity you carry. And that identity isn't created by what you say you want. It's shaped by how you think each morning, how you act each day, how you react when you fail, and how steady you remain when no one is watching. Mirror doesn't lie. It reflects back the reality you often try to avoid. If you see someone who makes excuses, procrastinates, blames others, then don't expect change to come from the outside. Because if you lack the courage to face your own responsibility, you also lack the courage to change your future. But if you see someone who takes ownership, accepts loss without complaining, dares to start over without fearing judgment, then congratulations, you're standing face to face with the most important raw material for building wealth, yourself. But more honest, braver, and clearer. Every financial metric you have is merely the external expression of an internal structure. Your income won't rise if your mindset, skills, habits, and identity remain the same. If your bank balance is the painting, then the mirror is the brush. You can't color the canvas of your life if you don't control the one holding the brush. And that person is no one else but you. Not the market, not your boss, not your family, not your past. You, the one who looks in the mirror every day but may have never truly seen yourself clearly. You want a different outcome? Start by changing the person in the mirror. Not by altering your appearance, but by resetting your internal operating system. Change what you consider normal, because normal is the very reason you haven't broken through. Stop justifying bad habits by saying, I'm just an ordinary person. Stop saying, I tried my best, when deep down you know you haven't. Look directly at what you've been tolerating. The ease, the distraction, the delay, the emotional dependency, all of that is visible in the mirror if you have the courage to look long enough. And when you begin to change the person in the mirror, the world outside will change accordingly. Not in a storm, but in gentle waves of ripple effect. You think better. You act with more clarity. You speak with more weight. You show up with different energy. And as a result, doors that were once closed will gradually open, not because they're forced to, but because you become the kind of person who's now ready to walk through them. The greatest danger is not having nothing, it's living as someone you no longer respect. Every time you break a promise to yourself, you weaken the person in the mirror. Every time you choose comfort over what's right, you blur the image in the mirror. And when you can no longer see clearly who you are, you start living by reflex, by circumstances, by public opinion. That's when you lose your map, drift off course, and walk aimlessly, even though you're moving every day. On the other hand, if you dare to face the person in the mirror with total honesty, you'll begin to rebuild everything from the ground up. No blaming, no delaying, no playing victim, just one question. Who must I become to be worthy of the life I want? And from there, you'll begin building new habits, making sharper decisions, and redrawing your limits. Quietly, without needing validation, but with a steadiness nothing can shake. Wealth doesn't come from miracles, it comes from someone who has stared into their own reflection long enough to realize all true change begins with a mirror, not the bank balance. Because if you can't change that person, no matter how much money or how many opportunities flow into your life, it will all disappear because the foundation remains the old you. But if you rebuild that person from the core, you won't need luck. You will be the cause, and the world, whether it wants to or not, will have to adjust to you.